Hey guys, Sai. Welcome to Ace Podcast Nation. On our channel, you can find interviews, podcasts, and content on a whole variety of subjects. We've got shows on mental health, football, films, TV, wrestling, music, and more, including a brand new series on serial killers. The first episode came out last week, which was on Jeffrey Dahmer, and we've got some more of those coming up soon. We've got the next installment of our films podcast, which is the podcast with no name, with myself and Rhys and Jamie. The next episode of that is probably week after next, because that's a monthly one. Today's episode is our 8th episode in our series on conspiracy theories, and it's another wild one to follow up on the Anunnaki and the lizards and the shapeshifters and David Icke last week. We have so tonight's show is called the 27 Club, Fake Paul McCartney and Celebrity Replacements. So yeah, we're going there, all right. It's going to be interesting. To join me, it's not even a rabbit hole anymore. It's just a big hole of paranoia, secrecy, crazy shit. It's my co-host Rhys. Welcome, buddy.
Hello, guys. You all okay?
I don't know if we'll be okay after we finish with this. After the shapeshifters last week, I wasn't sure I could get any crazier or any weirder, and I think it might. So usual shtick before we start. Just a little disclaimer, really, so people don't get upset. So before we head down terrifying and weird roads to conspiracy theories, I want to point out that just because we discuss particular theories doesn't mean we believe them to be true, agree with the points of view, or in any way think that's how it went down. We're simply here to discuss popular theories, have a look at some evidence presented by the people who championed them. Okay, so let's start with the 27 Club. It's a weird one. So basically, the 27 Club is a long list, consisted mostly of like pop stars, rock stars, actors, all who've died at the age of 27. And although, a lot of people claim it's a statistical spike for the death of musicians at that age, there is obviously documentary evidence that all these people are dying at 27. But as Rhys just said to me off air, these guys and girls, they've got more money than they'll ever need. They're at an age where they're partying, so they're going to have high-risk lifestyles. They drive fast cars. They go flying around the world. It's, it's one of those which is a bit of this and a bit of that. Is it coincidence? Is there something more sinister behind it? I think the only conspiracy part of it for me would be if there's any links to sort of like Illuminati and blood rituals, which are quite popular theories when celebrity dies, whether it's like when Paul Walker died, and there's always links to numbers and colors and all this sorts of stuff, and then the people who research them, they find things in the run up to their death, whether it's quotes by them or other people, sort of seemingly referencing their death before it happens. But it is a long list, mate, isn't it? It's
a huge list.
Oh yeah, some of the biggest names in music, like Jim Morrison, and a lot of these names, they're quite often rumored to be fake their death or still be alive. You've got so let's start with Jim Morrison. Jim Morrison died age 27 in France in a bath of heart failure, but he was quite open about the fact that he didn't enjoy fame as much as he used to when he was a bit younger. He also had said on multiple occasions that he'd quite like to fake his death. But I think around the time of his death, he had settled back into doing things like poetry and writing music again, and was actually coming around more to the fame side of things again after having a few years of wanting to get away from it, which I think is where people think maybe that's why he sort of faked his death, or there was something a bit sinister behind it because he had come around to it. Kurt Cobain, Amy Winehouse. Trying to find my list now. There's loads, isn't there? There's loads of like rappers, and there you go. Okay.
Let's just mention the elephant in the room, yeah? Every single name that's coming out had a high influence with drugs.
Yeah, the majority of them do. Jimi Hendrix, Janis Joplin, Jim Morrison, yeah. And then you've got Kurt Cobain, and obviously then you've got guys like rappers like Stretch and Fat Pat. There's loads of it. I was surprised how many rappers were on the list from like the late 90s and 80s and stuff. It's a never-ending list. I'm not going to list them all, but and obviously then you've got like Richie Edwards from the Manic Street Preachers, Jesus Christ, I can't speak tonight. Manic Street Preachers, who disappeared in February 1995, but then he was officially presumed dead in 2008. But he's another one who, people often spot and say he's still alive, living in the Goa somewhere in India or whatever. So what do you think, mate? Do you think it's just one big, huge coincidence? Or do you think there's something a bit more to it?
Some celebrities, I could buy into them faking their deaths and getting away with it. But some, it's in the nicest way possible, they're not famous enough. They've got to be worldwide fame to get away with this, and they'd have to be in with some pretty high people.
Yeah, it take a lot of pulling off.
We all know it can be done. There's witness protection, plastic surgery, but there's always someone who knows.
There's actually a conspiracy theory that Jim Morrison is who is it? Is someone famous? I think it might be Alex Jones. That he he faked his own death and then he came back as like a conspiracy theorist. I think it's Alex Jones. It might not be. It might be someone different. But I haven't
seen that one. I'll be honest.
It's something really, really random like that. Like you say, all these people, a lot of them have got a sort of dependency on drugs and a party lifestyle. So it is a case of, if you have too much of that sort of thing, eventually your body will give out. But there's just, there is just so many. And I noticed a lot of them, which is where it, for me, maybe, like I said, the only conspiracy theory I can see from it myself is like the Illuminati type side of the numerology and that sort of thing. A lot of them have died on like the anniversary of like people earlier. So like in 2011, 17 years to the day that Kurt Cobain died, Amy Winehouse died at 27 again, which obviously that produces like a swell of, the people speculating again. And 3 years earlier, she had expressed a fear of dying at age 27 as well. And those are those sorts of quotes where people go back and they kind of, they almost look more into it than what perhaps they, what was meant at the time. Like,
to be fair, if I spent 90% of my life off my tits on drugs, I'd probably be scared of numbers and things like that, mate. But there's only 365 days in a year. It's not a huge 1,000,000 to 1 chance.
No, it's not. And I mean,
it's one of them. It's just a horrible coincidence. Like, take me for argument's sake. My stepmom passed away on my birthday, and my dad passed away on my stepdad's birthday. But it's just total utter coincidence.
Yeah, and like you see, like you have like brothers and sisters being born on the same day, or people being born on the same day as their mother, or whatever it may be. There's always room for.
It's a 1 in 365 chance. It's not huge odds, is it?
No, it's not like completely out of this world. Couldn't happen, but the sheer numbers of them is what makes me. I wouldn't say like I'm nowhere near sort of believing it to be any sort of conspiracy theory. I find it fascinating that it's happened so much. And like what interests me is that often some of the people it's happened to have been quite critical of the sort of corporations and they've been like quite authoritarian. So it's like, people like Janis Joplin and Jimi Hendrix, even Kurt Cobain, Jim Morrison, they're all quite anti.
They're the ones who are not just making a noise, they're kind of making a movement.
Yeah, and they influence people heavily when they were at their peak of fame, people were influenced by what they did and what they said. So if someone told me, or if there was like a thing tomorrow where a news report come out or a documentary come out with solid proof that those types of people were killed, or like Bob Marley was killed by whoever, CIA, or those types of people, I wouldn't be surprised, because they were, like you say, they were creating a movement of people who wanted to live differently and who wanted the world to be different.
Yeah.
Bob Marley was about like peace and love and getting the world to be a better place. But of course, people who make money from weapons and wars and stuff, they don't want they don't want the world to be a better place. They don't want the
No, but
world
like
to be a place.
on the flip side there, Bob Marley knew some pretty rough people in Jamaica.
Oh, of course he did. And a lot of these people, I think generally, if you in that world and you're doing a lot of drugs, you know some shady people,
Yeah.
because you're paying those people extra because you don't want the world to find out. You don't want your drug dealer selling your story to the newspaper saying that Kurt Cobain's just bought a load of heroin or whatever, whatever it may be.
Yeah.
So yeah, this one's a bit undecided for me, a bit weird, a bit coincidental, but equally,
I'd like to see the stats of like how many famous people have passed away age like 34 or something like that.
see if
Just
there's like a big difference.
to compare.
I think, but then I was so on my list. I've got like a list of all the the causes of death, and actually, not many of them are drug related.
No, but
I
they
say
were.
that, but they're like heart related. But like, so for instance, some of the earlier ones, like the ones in there's one as far back as 1864, which was a pianist, composer, and conductor who died of an unknown cause. And then there's a couple of those, like 1881, neurosyphilitic sclerosis, which you'd think is down to like medicine at the time. And then there's a couple of poisonings and
Yeah, but
complications
in the 1800s, wasn't like
yeah,
cocaine and LSD and things like that big in medicine?
yeah, exactly that. But then as you get towards, so then you get to like 30s and 40s, and it's like there's one drug overdose, and then it's like a traffic collision, heart attack, car crash. Well, there's another drug overdose. Rolling Stones founder Brian Jones died of a misadventure, and like they're the ones which I'd be more inclined to be a bit like, all right, whenever anything says unknown, misadventure,
Car crash.
yeah, car crash, And like I am, when Paul Walker died, I was looking at videos about him, just looking at video, just like clips of Fast and Furious and stuff.
Yeah.
And like a couple of months after he died, there was people in there and they had these like 20, 30-minute videos just talking about all these different reasons and theories about why he'd been murdered, starting with like the numerologies behind the date, the numbers on the signpost he crashed into, and the number plate on his car or on the car he was in, and just all this like random stuff which these people had, they would have taken them hours to put it all together. Um, and then I watch something like that, and I do think, well, all these celebrities keep dying. Really, shouldn't these celebrities be safer than us because they've got so much money for protection and for, they can buy the best flights and the best cars and, whatever it may be. So shouldn't they technically be less at risk if you take out things like stalkers and drugs? But I mean, I guess, if a plane crashes, it crashes regardless of who's in it. But yeah, it's a strange one, but I'm undecided. But yeah, there's not, there is some drug overdoses on here, but there's a lot of undisclosed illnesses, misadventure,
But
unknown.
personally, I don't buy into the 27 Club as anything more than coincidence.
Hmm. I'd
Certain
love to.
celebrities and certain celebrity deaths, I could buy into they've been
Yeah,
arranged.
yeah. Yeah, I think that, yeah, I could definitely see some celebrity deaths over the years being assassinations,
Yeah.
but
Like this
maybe not
conspiracy theory with the
necessarily,
27 Club, there's no
maybe it's
reason
not
to it though.
caused. No, other than the numerology, if you
Yeah, but there's
go
no
down.
conspiracy there. I, I, I don't
Well,
get this one. Do you get me?
so yeah, so like, but so with like the theories behind Illuminati's and like say it's like so basically what it is, it's like a satanic blood ritual where they prepare it previous to the murder or the killing, by they put certain headlines in the newspapers which have got certain words or pictures incorporated into it, and then it's done on a certain day at a certain time. So they add up to whatever. Then I'm not sure the exact different iterations of the numbers, and then it's basically done in a way that they think that it opens up them, to Satan or whatever they believe in.
What have they got to be 27 then for this blood?
Well, no, I think the 27 just comes into the general numerology. So, like, it
Right.
can be quite often, it can be linked to threes or sixes, or so. Like, I think one of the things with Paul Walker was that the road he died on added up to a certain number. The number on the number plate of the car added up to that, or had the certain numbers in. The number on the lamppost added up or was the same. So do you know what I mean? It was like a series of this
Yeah, but
same number
the
showing
thing is
up.
with numbers, you can make a combination or make it
Yeah,
unique in
yeah, you can
any
do
way
it.
you want. You know,
Yeah,
you give
but
me two numbers and I'll relate it to anything. You just got to be able
yeah,
to like, manipulate them a
but
bit.
but then like the flip side to that is like people who believe in that sort of stuff, numerology. There's no doubt that like numerology is massively important in the occult. Um,
Not just in the occult, in nature, mate. Look
oh
at the
yeah, of course.
Fibonacci sequence.
But like, if you think like people who believe in like the occult or they worship the occult or whatever you want to word it, they um they put a lot of stock into numerology, don't they? So if you were going to offer celebrity for some sort of occult ritual, then you would do it in a way that these numbers would reoccur, and the date and the time and the whatever, the car and stuff, it would all be linked, if you get me, if you were going to do it. But
Yeah.
it's a bit of a stretch, maybe. Okay, so we're going to move on to the my favourite part of this, which is the Paul McCartney, the Paul McCartney conspiracy. Okay, so some people might not even be aware of this because I only found out about it a couple of years ago. So basically, let's break down what it is first, and then we'll go into some of the evidence behind it. So are you aware of this one?
Vaguely.
Right. Okay. So I'll
I've
tell you.
never really looked into it, but I've read about it.
Okay. So the Paul is dead is the sort of tagline which people use. So Paul McCartney, the urban legend or the conspiracy theory is that Paul McCartney of the Beatles died in November 1966, and he was secretly replaced by a lookalike. So September 1969, a rumor of McCartney's death, supposed death, began spreading across college campuses in America, and the rumor was based on a perceived clue which was found in the Beatles songs and album covers. So I'm just going to stop there because that's made a bit of a jump. So in November 1966, there was a car crash. So people who've researched it, there was a car crash in an area where he was, and a man died at the same age, same build or whatever. And because the Beatles were just either at their peak, or I'm not 100% sure on the dates of when the Beatles were, when they came on the scene and stuff. But basically, they were either on their way up or they were at their sort of peak. So rather than, him dying and them just having a big funeral and stuff, they decided that they made the decision with the band and the manager. Is it Brian Epstein?
I think it was, yeah.
So they made the decision to bring in a lookalike. They had someone who was quite often they used as a double for filming or for, if they want to, because Beatles fans were crazy, weren't they? They were like thousands of them running around the streets chasing them and stuff. So they'd quite often use doubles to get them where they needed to go without having to navigate, thousands of fans and whatnot. So there was a car crash. They think he died. Okay. So 3 years later, then 1969, this rumor in these colleges all around America came out that people had found clues in Beatles songs and album covers. Clue hunting proved infectious, as conspiracy theories do, don't they? And they spread, and people looking.
Wildfire.
And so within a few weeks, it had become literally an international phenomenon of people just convinced that Paul McCartney wasn't the real Paul McCartney. And he had been secluded with his family in Scotland. And he had taken a step back from, from public life at that time. So during the 1970s, the sort of the phenomenon, if you like, or what would you call it, like the theory, was subjective analysis in the fields of like sociology, psychology, communications. People tried to reference pictures, his singing, his playing, everything, to try and work out if it was a real thing. He himself poked fun of it. He's poked fun of it as the years have gone on, from like the 90s to now. And I think one of it, his live album, was in 1993, was titled Paul is Live, with a cover art which parodied the clues, which I'm going to go through in a minute, which allegedly people had picked up on these clues. And Time magazine actually featured a headline at one point saying Paul is dead, and in its and then it featured all the different supposed clues. So this was quite a big a big conspiracy theory, because if you think about like 9/11. So that's like the most prominent conspiracy theory. Very
Yeah.
rarely do you see that on like the Sun or the big newspapers, the big TV. They don't even discuss it. They just completely avoid it. So the fact that it was on Time magazine shows like how big uh, an issue, I suppose, or how big a theory it was in terms of how many.
The thing is with that, though, the 9/11 one is a government conspiracy.
Yeah, yeah,
This is a celebrity conspiracy. Two
yeah,
totally different things. Governments can cover up what they want to, pretty much.
absolutely.
Celebrities can only cover things up with the help of governments.
Yeah, yeah, of course. Okay,
Well, that's
so
my view of it.
yeah, yeah, no, I completely agree. So let's go into some of the alleged um, evidence. So in Revolution 9, which you'll have to forgive me, I'm not a big Beatles fan, which is ironic because I love Oasis, but I'm not a massive fan of the Beatles. Um, I'm assuming Revolution 9 is a song. And allegedly, if you back mask the section, so you play it backwards, the same section, or the section played in reverse, um, says turn me on, dead man. And then it's worded really badly. Sorry, it's my typing. So if you play it backwards, it says turn me on, dead man. And then in early Jesus, I've written this really badly. Sorry, mate. So fucking hell. Simon. I've like skipped ahead myself, so I've like written it backwards. I'm gonna have to do a shitload of editing in this show. Okay. Right. In early 1969, a rumor circulated in London that Paul McCartney had been killed in a traffic accident. Right. This is what I was trying to explain, and I couldn't find it. He was killed in a traffic accident while driving along the M1 on January the 7th. The rumor acknowledged that there was an accident and someone had died, but it didn't confirm at any point. Although I have seen somewhere, I can't remember where I saw it, that there was a rumor on one of the local radios that Paul McCartney had died, like it was read out on the radio. Obviously, radio
Yeah.
was very different back then, wasn't it? On the wireless, you know, they were like proper journalists, weren't they? I think we talked about this before, didn't we? About the difference in radio then and now.
Yeah.
Um,
Back then, everything was believable. If it was heard on the radio or news, everyone believed it.
oh yeah, look at War of the Worlds, wasn't it?
Yeah.
People believed that. So, according to a lecture which was titled "Who Buried Paul," which was presented by a man called Brian Moriarty at the 1999 Game Developers Conference, it is not known whether the rumor of the 1969 is related to an earlier episode. In late September 1969, the Beatles released the album Abbey Road as they were in the process of disbanding. So it was like they released the album as they were splitting up. Isolated from his bandmates in his opposition to their choice of business manager, Alan Klein, and distraught at John Lennon's private announcement that he was leaving the group. So basically in 1969, which is when the rumours started to swirl, that, or should I say when the rumours started in the college campuses, Paul McCartney was very isolated from the rest of the group. He was not getting on with John Lennon, and he had retreated to his farm in Scotland with his wife Linda and their daughters. Trying to get to the bit where the evidence is. So, yeah, so he was reclused and secluded. They published, so these universities and student newspapers started publishing articles on him being dead, and so there was one titled "Is Beatle Paul McCartney Dead?" and the article addressed the rumours being circulated on all the campuses around the country, and then cited some of the clues from the recent albums, including the message which we just discussed, "Turn Me On, Dead Man." So I'm going to just stop there a minute. With the with like these back masking where they reverse the record and it comes up with a message, I'm always really skeptical of it, because if you're going to put in like a backmasked, like a reverse message or whatever, to me, you'd make it make sense. Like, I don't know how difficult it is to do. I say that, with no knowledge of how hard it is to do.
Now it's probably easy with the technology, but back then it was probably a bit difficult.
But you know what I mean? They always seem like the sentences never make quite sense. It's always like random words.
Have you ever actually done it with one of them?
Yeah, I did years ago.
I haven't, see. I always say I'm going to, but I've never done it, so I can't confirm it. You can't confirm hearing a recording being right, can you?
No. We did it with, I think it was a Rolling Stones record years ago. And, you can hear it, definitely, and it is creepy as hell, because the music's all backwards as well. So it makes it, seem more creepy, the fact that the music's backwards. So you've got "Turn Me On, Dead Man" is the sort of the backwards message in this song. It's from the band's self-titled LP, which was known as the White Album, which is one of their biggest albums, I believe. According to music journalist Meryl Nodin, this was first published article which actually addressed him being dead, this student newspaper, in 1969. And Harper said that it had become a subject of discussion among students, not just in college campuses in America, but all over the world. Even so, he says he was based in Vietnam at the time, and even there, it was rampant in the English-speaking circles, where people believed it.
The thing is, like you say, like nowadays, there's so many different platforms to spread news, etc., and also there's so many different platforms to find out that it's not true. Like back then, like you say, that one little thing on a radio would have spread like wildfire.
Oh yeah,
and nobody denied it, did they?
So that's what I was just going to say. They had on October the 10th, 1969, the Beatles press officer responded to the rumour, saying, "Recently we've been getting floods of inquiries asking about the reports that Paul's dead. We've been getting questions like that for years, of course, but in the past few weeks we've been getting them at the office day and night and at home, and I'm even getting telephone calls from disc jockeys and others in the United States." So, like, it wasn't just the fans and students and people believing it. Higher ups in radio stations and companies were getting on board with it at this point.
But at that time, the Beatles were probably the most famous thing on the planet.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Anything with them, people wanted in on.
Yeah, and I find it remarkable though that like people, people within the music industry needed to check. They were phoning to find out. So on October the 12th, what did I say just now? The press officer spoke on October the 10th, and then on October the 12th, I just lost my place. Sorry, mate, I'm all over the shop tonight. So on October the 12th, a caller phoned in a Detroit radio station, told the disc jockey Rhys Gibb about the rumour and its clues. So Gibb and the others then discussed the rumour on air for the next hour, during which Gibb offered further potential clues. So 2 days later, the Michigan Daily newspaper published a satirical review of Abbey Road by a student who would listen to the exchange on the radio station, and under the headline had written, "McCartney's dead, new evidence brought to light." He identified various clues to McCartney's death on the Beatles album covers. So particularly on the Abbey Road sleeve, this is the one where they look like they're in a funeral procession. Yeah. So that's one of and I think Paul is wearing that. They've all got, I think, like black suits on, and he's got like a white suit on, as if he's an angel. And it's like that type of thing. And when the famous picture of him walking across the road on the crossing,
Abbey Road.
where they're all like, they haven't got shoes on, which apparently is like supposed to indicate, like death as a mark of respect or something like that. And it's like all like little clues, which to me, like I can kind of get the one about the Paul McCartney in a different coloured suit to the rest of them, but the one about the shoes doesn't really do it for me. I just think that's just because they were hippies and.
Yeah, you could, that could be like saying, oh, the pose they did is in reference to a pagan symbol, and that's just one of them things. The different suit thing for Paul McCartney, that is
Yeah, and it's like what we've talked about on all of the shows, more or less, about people who are involved in these conspiracies. They like to give little nods to it, don't they? Whether it's the government or whoever it is, they do like to give little nods to people.
But something like this, I believe, too many people would have known the truth, and it would have slipped out somewhere.
Well, apparently, the only people who know are the Beatles, Brian Epstein, who's dead, I think. So it's like,
and the guy who it was,
small circle, and the guy who replaced him.
You can guarantee, like John Lennon would have told Yoko Ono.
Well, you'd think that, but would you, if you were involved in something like that? Like,
Again,
it would have affected.
Like going back to the elephant in the room with all the drugs they'd gone through, probably
Yeah.
I'd probably be naked on the town hall clock telling everyone.
Yeah, and I think the other way to look at it as well is, and John Lennon even said at one point, is that the rumor was insane, but it was awesome publicity for Abbey Road because everyone went out and bought it to check out the clues for themselves and go through all the album covers and the pictures and play all the records backwards and all this.
Something like that. It's a money spinner.
Oh yeah, and then if you think, like before Abbey Road came out, if you knew this rumor was starting to get a bit of steam, you would put clues in there because fucking get some clues.
Anyone worth their salt in PR would be like, we're jumping on this now, wouldn't they?
Yeah, and I mean, I gotta say, I don't know the timeline in terms of did the rumor take hold after the release of the album, so it sort of came from the clues, or was the rumor out there and then the album came out? If you get what I mean?
Yeah, but like you think about it now. Say a new album's coming out, you've got Facebook. One little message by that band, everyone does their promotions for them.
Yeah.
Yeah, everyone shares it. New film's coming out. The TV studio will put one clip up. How many different people share that? Millions.
Yeah.
Back then, they didn't have access to anything like this. So imagine a rumour like that popping out and they've gone, hang on, we've got an album coming up. This is going to smash us into orbit.
Yeah, definitely. So, okay, let's go through the album cover. So, you got the funeral procession, which is the cover of Abbey Road. So the main parts of the theory maintain that November 66, McCartney has an argument with his bandmates during a Beatles recording session, and then he drove off angrily in his car. He crashes, was decapitated, which that is interesting because one of the other things we're going to talk about later on also involves a celebrity being decapitated and replaced, which is like an interesting similarity. So to spare the public from grief or simply as a joke, the surviving Beatle members replaced him with the winner of a McCartney lookalike competition. This scenario was facilitated by the Beatles' recent retirement from live performances. So basically, at this point, the Beatles were having issues within the band. So they had announced they weren't doing any more live performances. So if they did want to replace him, they could have.
Yeah.
Because as long as he looked pretty much like him, they were all right, because no one's going to question it, and the other members could play his guitar parts during the recordings, and they weren't doing any live performances.
Yeah, but look how many songs Paul McCartney did with Wings.
Yeah, but that's easily around, isn't it?
No, but they did live things, didn't they?
Yeah, but I mean, again, it's not difficult to navigate that. It's unlikely, I agree, but it's not impossible to do something with.
Oh no, when it comes to technology, there's always a way.
Yeah, and I think the other thing is as well is following the Abbey Road album, their next album there was a bit of a gap, and it was called Sergeant Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band, and they completely had a new image. Like McCartney had a moustache, and like they completely changed their image.
Everything.
And if you were trying to disguise the fact that one of the members is a lookalike, you would do things like grow facial hair and grow your hair out and change your.
But again, is this all their publicity stunt all the way?
Yeah, absolutely. So apparently the stand-in was an orphan from Edinburgh named William Campbell, whom the Beatles then trained to impersonate McCartney. Others have contended over the year that the man's name was William Shears Campbell, which was later abbreviated to P. Shears, and that the replacement was instigated by Britain's MI5 out of the concern for the severe distress Paul McCartney's death caused the Beatles' audience. The surviving Beatles were said to be racked with guilt by their duplicity and their, lying, basically. So therefore, they left messages in their music and album artwork to communicate the truth to fans who paid attention. The DJ who put all the different clues together says Paul with no shoes on the Abbey Road cover and the Volkswagen Beetle. There was a magical mystery tour. So this is Ringo Starr speaking. He says, a DJ put all those signs together. Paul with no shoes on the cover of Abbey Road, the Volkswagen Beetle. Then there was the magical mystery tour where three of us had red roses and he had a black one. It was just madness. There was no way we could prove he was alive. So, sorry, I was wrong about the suits. I knew it was something like that. I just couldn't remember what it was. So on the cover, all the Beatles are holding red roses, and Paul McCartney's holding a black one. Which there's no reason why one member wouldn't be like. Why would one not be? Why would they not all have the same color rose? It's just balmy, mate, isn't it? Do you know what I mean? There's so many it's just crazy stuff.
But there will be literally millions of people who bought into this at the time.
Mate, I know. I'm not even convinced that I don't buy into it, because I was trying to just find it. Then there's a documentary about it, and I found out about it actually from the Rich D. Hall TV show, Rich Planet. They had a guy on there who was talking about it, and he went through all this stuff. And I was hoping to watch it before I did this show, so it was all fresh in my mind. But I just haven't had a chance today, which I'm a bit gutted about, because I've been a bit squiffled with my info.
I might watch that.
But yeah, I'll send you a link to it, and I might post the link to it in the YouTube video as well, because it's really interesting. And I haven't communicated it very well in this show, I've got to be honest. But the way this guy went through all the evidence and they showed the pictures and stuff, I kind of leaned into it a bit. And there's some stuff to do with the William Shears, Billy Shears. He's actually mentioned, I think, in a song or something along, later on in their careers. And apparently that's why Lennon went so off the rails, is because he couldn't deal with the amount of lies that they were having to tell. Because you've got to think, from that, if that happened from that moment on, they were lying constantly. In every interview they were lying, which is going to take a toll on like your mental health and your all aspects of your life, really. So yeah, it's a weird one, that is. So with Paul McCartney, they think it's a lookalike. Okay, so it's not like a clone or anything like this, which is what we're going to move on to now, which is celebs who've died and been replaced by a lookalike or a clone. So we'll start with one of the most well-known theories is Avril Lavigne. So the rumor is that the Canadian singer was replaced by a lookalike way back in, I think it was 2003. So let's have a look. So Avril Lavigne was replaced by a lookalike named Melissa in 2003. So the conspiracy theory was that Lavigne has been cloned or replaced. And it's been around the internet on and off. Like, it seems to pop back up every now and again.
Yeah.
And I guess the theory is that she was struggling with the fame at the beginning of her career, and she began using this body double named Melissa. And at some point, the real Avril Lavigne is said to have died. I read somewhere that it's not on the bit I've written here, but that she killed herself. And the record company replaced her with the body double. And then there's loads of like pictures and proof of, and to be fair, some of the pictures you'll see there's big facial differences from like the sort of early 2000s to sort of more recent, or sort of in the last sort of 5 or 6 years. Like one's got like quite a pointy nose and one's got more of a like a rounded sort of wider nose. And the conspiracy theorists believe that Melissa has left clues in the songs, such as a song called Slipped Away, where she sings, "The day you slipped away was the day I found it won't be the same." There was even a publicity shot in which Lavigne had Melissa written on her hand, which was, it's a bit spooky. But if you've got someone who's working as a body double for you, day in, day out, and you're a young celebrity, you're going to feel close to them, aren't you? And
yeah, she's going to do a little reference to her.
Yeah.
The nose thing could easily be plastic surgery.
Yeah, I think so. It's, like I say, that one, it pops up like every now and again. Where do you stand on cloning generally, like in terms of conspiracy theories? Do you think it's a thing?
It's believable. Very believable.
A multi-billion-dollar business, if they got the ability to clone like young pop stars, why wouldn't you, in case something happens to them?
Yeah.
Because you don't want to lose your cash cow, do you? Like,
unless you're going to make
someone
more
like
money off
Justin
their
Bieber.
death.
Yeah, imagine if someone like Justin Bieber had died at like 19. Imagine how much money all those people who've made billions off him, how much money would they not have made? So, like, it's a weird one, isn't it?
Maybe the record companies look at it and go, look, when they hit 27, we don't really need him anymore.
Shit, just bump them off then. Because they've made billions from their cloning projects.
And then they make twice as much from their death.
Yeah. The cloning thing's interesting though, because if you go on YouTube and you write in, you search celebrity clone glitch, and there's hundreds of videos of newsreaders, celebrities. There's a famous one of like Eminem where he's doing he's like on the panel it must be like a basketball game or something, and they sort of throw to him to speak, and he just like stares into space, like as if he's. But it's not like he's like messing about, or it's not like he's trying to think of something to say. It's like it's just there's nothing there. It's not even like he's like high.
I
It's
haven't
like
seen
he's
that.
just. It's just like he glitches, and there's loads of them, and newsreaders, pop stars, where they just and they what they say is these people like who believe these conspiracy theories is that there's the clones where they clone someone, they it's like a copy, and obviously, but they're not able to completely like they don't work like 100%
Yeah.
of the time, so they like glitch out, like like computer code, I guess, and how anything electronics and stuff like that, they glitch, don't they? And they can
But
cause
with that,
issues.
wouldn't they have to be an android, not a clone? That
I don't
would,
know. No, like I guess a clone is like Dolly the sheep, wasn't it? All
yeah.
them years ago, where they use your DNA to make a carbon copy, but like an android would be like a robotic type one, wouldn't it? So I suppose I don't know, but like to me, it seems almost a bit far fetched. But like, how many times have we said in these 8 shows about whatever technology they say we've got, they're like 10 years in front,
Yeah.
and like they were cloning sheep when we were kids. So like you're talking 20 years ago. So there's every possibility that they've been able to clone human beings. So maybe it's not as out there as it were. Okay, so next celebrity to supposedly have been cloned, Taylor Swift. Um, so this one's slightly different because it's not a case of someone celebrity dies and then she's replaced by a clone. The Taylor Swift one is that they believe Taylor Swift is in fact the clone of a former satanic priestess.
That's right.
Seems reasonable. So the theory is dates back to 2011. It claims that Swift is an Illuminati clone of Zena LeVay, who was the daughter of the founder of the Church of Satan. Essentially, the two look very similar. There's thousands of videos on YouTube comparing the two, which, for some people, that's enough proof. But I mean, that's got a lot of legs in terms of the amount of people who believe it. But then, whenever the like Satan and devil worshippers and
It makes people
Illuminati
kind of
are
want to believe
involved,
it.
oh yeah, as soon as I see like Illuminati and Satan, I think, oh, that's possible. Just
Yeah.
because
If
of
they just said, like, oh, Taylor Swift is a clone of Margaret who used to work in the knitting factory, not as believable.
yeah, and like even if they just say, oh yeah, she died and she was cloned, I'd have been like, maybe
Yeah.
like I was with Avril Lavigne, whereas Illuminati clone of the daughter of the founder of Church of Satan, and it's like, yeah, I get on board with that. That's
Yeah.
the sort of shit they would do. Um, Beyonce. So Beyonce and Jay-Z long been associated with the Illuminati on certain pockets of the internet. Uh, so much so that Beyonce has referenced it in albums and songs. It's claimed that their Illuminati uses clones to brainwash, new members and the society. Sometimes all it takes to set a conspiracy wheels in motion is two different pictures of the same person. The Beyonce cloning theory gained a load of attention. I think it was 2016, where a Facebook post compared images of her from 2010 and 2016, and she just looked completely different. Like the chick on the girl on one side was looked like her, and then the one on the other side looked like there was something not quite right. But I mean, that could be anything. That could be drugs.
That could just be makeup.
Makeup. That could be plastic
Surgery.
surgery, all sorts. However, I will say that Beyonce and Jay-Z seem to be, if there is such a thing as an Illuminati, and like all the stuff we've discussed previously with the celebs and pop stars, particularly in the music industry, they're like bang top of the list for up to their neck in it. However, they could, on the flip side again, check me out. I'm being the voice of reason today. He says after he's just reeled off a load of completely wild conspiracy theories, that I forgot what I was going to say then. What was I saying then?
Jay-Z and Beyonce.
Yeah. So if they were clever, even if they're not involved in the Illuminati, they've made it, they do signs and references and pictures to make people think they are, because it's good PR. So if everyone thinks you're doing something, why wouldn't you just let them think it and sell more records?
Yeah, totally. Don't deny it. Just let them think it.
Absolutely. So this one was interesting because I didn't know about this one until I was looking at it earlier on. Britney Spears. So apparently Britney Spears is dead. There was a website which is apparently is now not up, called BritneyIsDead.com. So back in 1998, right before dropping the now classic rock opera song of Baby One More Time, Britney and Justin Timberlake got into a particularly nasty car accident that resulted in severe burns on Justin's body and an unfortunate case of decapitation for Britney. And the rumor is that obviously she died, which was interesting to me because obviously Paul McCartney said to have been decapitated. Justin Timberlake is still in a coma to this day, apparently, and the Justin Timberlake who's been super famous ever since is a clone, supposedly. But because the pop stars, the label was forced to find a stand-in, a lookalike, whatever it may be. There were stories on this website that claimed the label's producers went to a mall in America and just found a young lookalike called Britney Shears, who basically was just like a tribute act, which seems really unlikely to me. And that's when they kind of lost me a bit with that little bit of it. And I don't know whether it was tongue in cheek or what. But up until then, I was like, all right, that's quite interesting. So, but then it does say, it seems to sort of go away from that and says, no, they cloned both of them. Apparently, Britney's had loads of clones who have come and gone, which explains all her like emotional ups and downs. So, like, where the clone has been sort of glitching out or having issues, they get rid of it and replace it, which seems really harsh. But according to this dude, there's a guy called what was his name, Marsh or something. who was pushing this theory, Donald Marshall, who pushes this sort of theory, or did. He says that at any given time there are at least two to five backup clones waiting underground for their turn in the spotlight, like for big pop stars. And apparently Britney Spears has been through a lot, which is why her image, and like it's not just her image in terms of what she dresses like, her looks have changed a lot over the years.
Oh, totally. Everything about her has changed. But how many celebrities totally change everything about her?
Yeah, it's a weird one, isn't it? Because, like, I got out of all not Paul McCartney, but the other ones, like all the ones we just listed, the Britney one makes the most sort of sense to me.
Yeah.
In terms of everything that's happened with her and the way her and Justin Timberlake completely like severed. They were like totally in love, and then all of a sudden they just completely severed contact completely.
Yeah.
And like
became different people.
Yeah. Which that kind of fits in with that a bit, like. So apparently he says, like any clone, you know, as you were, the Britney copies are not all happy with their life, because they're just waiting to be used, basically. So in 2009's Break the Ice, one of the songs written for Britney by Donald Marshall. So that Donald Marshall, who's saying about the clones, was actually her songwriter. So he's involved in her day-to-day, or at least her career. Well, that's interesting. That it's not just some random dude off the internet. It's actually a guy
who knows her intimately.
Yeah. That's to put a bit more weight behind that for me. So this Break the Ice song was written for her by this guy, Donald Marshall. And during the video, there's like an animated video which depicts her blowing up a cloning center. So like a human cloning factory. Which, again, like we said about, they love to give a nod and a wink to these things.
That seems a bit too big of a nod for me. That seems more publicity. It's not your subtle little, here it is.
Then, like, I can't imagine that this guy coming out and saying all this stuff about Britney being cloned and this and that, and she got decapitated. That's not doing anything for his career, because people are just going to think they can't trust him like other artists. You know what I mean?
Or maybe he did something that they weren't going to trust him anyway, so this was his cover for it.
Yeah, I guess. I suppose.
You know me, I'll play devil's advocate on anything.
Yeah, it's a weird one, that one.
It's believable.
Might have to have a little look into that one a bit more.
It's believable, but there's not enough proof.
Yeah, that's the thing, and like, I don't like watching the videos of the supposed clones sort of glitching out, because I find them really creepy. I know when to be bothered by like horror films and stuff at all. It didn't bother me at all. I can watch them, and it doesn't affect me. But like there's something about it. I find it really.
I'm gonna have to have a look at some of these.
Unsettling. That's the word I would use. Unsettling. According to Mr. Marshall, he says the tubes detailed in the video look exactly like the real tubes in the cloning centers. So, whatever, in this animated video for this song, where she blows up the cloning center, there must be some sort of tubes where they make clones. Apparently, that's what they're like in real life, according to Mr. Marshall. So, just finishing off, moving on to another Marshall, Marshall Mathers. There's long been rumours about that when he checked himself into rehab after a drug overdose in 2005, and he even said he nearly died at one point. He used the word nearly, of course, because when one is survived by innumerable copies of oneself, you can never really be dead, supposedly. Obviously, like Slim Shady is like worldwide phenomenon since the late 90s. Supposedly the Illuminati approached him, as they do with all up-and-coming pop stars, to see how he'd be willing to join their gang of super powerful, shady people. But apparently he declined, and thus was sent off to meet his demise in a fatal car crash. Or, as the rest of the world was concerned, he went to rehab, which is where the replacement or the clone was slotted in. Of
Do you reckon
course,
that's
no
why
clone.
Amy Winehouse had them lyrics? They tried to make me go to rehab. I said no, no, no.
Could be.
What's that conspiracy right here, right now?
Yeah, you're gonna blow it wide open now, mate. I'm telling you. So like Eminem, there's some weird videos of that dude, really, really weird. But like, he's done so many drugs over the years that you just don't know, like, what effect that'll have on someone,
Oh, totally.
what effect it'll have on the way they act, the way they behave, the way they look. So it's very difficult to say that one way or the other. But one thing about him is his apparently his hairline has shifted dramatically over the years, like back and forward. But like these days, you can have your hair plugged, can't you?
Yeah.
So, I mean,
They can do
I don't find that too compelling in terms of evidence because, yeah, it's pretty. When you've got billions of dollars, you can get these things fixed and done. And apparently, it says no doubt the clone was killed immediately after the interview aired, which is referring to the one I was saying about where he glitched on live television. He was with someone called Al Roker. I don't know who that is. It's an American celebrity. It's like doing a live show, and he apparently nearly gave the game away. So yeah, there we go. Let's have a look. And then the last one is like Hannah Montana.
Yeah, the old Miley Cyrus.
Yeah, Miley Cyrus, Hannah Montana. Apparently, there's like
I think that's just down to her agents and everyone around her realise the sweet girl image wasn't going to keep making money.
Yeah, but apparently she so apparently it's alleged that she refused the sort of she liked her clean image, and she refused like sexual advances of Disney executives. Her father included, it says here, but that's a bit weird. And then after the realizing that she intended to remain like clean cut and stuff, and she wouldn't partake in their Illuminati and occult type orgies and all the other stuff that's rumored to go on, they Disney higher up beat her up, left her for dead, and then brought in the clones to replace her. And there's a YouTube channel called the Miley Cyrus Conspiracies, which goes deeper than other videos and claims to contain proof that Miley Cyrus is a confirmed Draco reptilian shape-shifting hybrid. And it refers to the fact that when she blinks sideways. So on that note, we will leave it there because that fits in with last week's show.
As they say on Crime Watch, folks, please don't have nightmares.
Yeah, Jesus Christ. I apologize about this this show a bit, guys. My throat's really bad, and I've been struggling to get my words out. So it's a bit more dishevelled than usual. But we'll be back to normal next week. You can find Rhys on Twitter at Shore Celtic for all your landscaping needs. You can check us out on. You can find all our 33 shows on, or 35 by the time this comes out. Shows on video format. You can do youtube.com/c/Ace Podcast Nation. All your podcasting platforms: Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, iTunes, all that stuff. You can check out our new serial killer series. The podcast with no name, a film and TV podcast where we discuss the latest trailers and news, review some films and TV. We've got a mental health series where we discuss different mental health disorders from various points of view, including the medical, the parental, and the patients. We've also got another new series, which is mental health and sport, where we speak to ex-pro sportsmen and women, doctors, sports psychologists, and more to discuss the pressures of professional sports and ways to manage them. And of course, we do general interviews with people. We've had footballers, journalists, wrestlers, MMA journalists, podcasters, authors, and me and Rhys. That's all you need. And this was the Conspiracy Theory Show. We'll be back next week with another one. And next week we also have Jeffrey Dahmer Part 2.
Can't wait for that one.
Anything to add, mate?
Nothing at the moment, mate.
Nothing today. We'll try and next week. So, there you are. Next episode is episode number 9. So I said that when we got to number 9, that would be the big one. The Big Daddy Conspiracy. Number 9, 9/11.
Oh, yes.
So that'll be the next Conspiracy Theory show. Me and Rhys will just discuss when we're going to film it. But yeah, that'll be next week. Wicked. Thanks for joining me, Rhys.
Oh, it's a pleasure, mate.
Thanks for watching and listening, everybody, and we'll see you next week. We are out.
Arrivederci.